First things first. Bryan Hopkins, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey,
First things
thanks.
first. Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Do you have
Uh,
big birthday plans for the weekend?
you know what? I have a big show, and so I have a festival on Saturday, and so that's my birthday weekend for you. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's funny. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get up this morning. I went to bed at 3:15, and we're taping this pretty early, and I laughed, but my phone just kept going off with birthday wishes from all over the country. So that's what it would have woke me up had I not woke to my alarm.
We have you're loved by so many people. I'm so excited to sit
Thanks,
and
man.
chat with you long form. You and I've done we've
Yeah,
done plenty of interviews on Las Vegas now, the TV show that I host. But they're like 3-minute interviews. We've done radio stuff, 4 minutes or so. Never we've gone long forms. I have a lot to talk to you about and kind of go deep in your background and your backstory.
yeah,
It's fascinating and so many things happening in your life. But those not familiar with Bryan, he's a singer, songwriter, lead singer of Elvis Monroe. You've got the Hero's Journey podcast as well. You're a man
yeah.
of many talents, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because you and I feel like I would just be redundant because we talk at the gym so much, and that's our long form conversations. But I've never seen anybody work so hard in the gym like you. I'm like walking up going tips, and you're like, yeah, it's my diet. It's things it's things I have to give up. But you look great. I appreciate that, man. I started Hero's Journey podcast about a year and a half ago. One of my good friends, John Orlando, Tony Orlando's son, approached me with giving me an opportunity, and I have a chance to interview some inspiring people. Like from celebrities to people I run into who I'm like, wait a minute, you climb Mount Everest, you have to be on my show, which I sent over to you
Yes,
because she was so inspiring. So and I've been the lead singer of a band called Elvis Monroe, which brought me into Las Vegas in 2012. We started coming out here every 2 weeks. We started at Red Rock, had a residency once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then they or once a month, and then they added Sunset Station, and we started coming in every 2 weeks. And Elvis Monroe is made up of Ben Carey from Lifehouse and Savage Garden, Ryan McMillan from Matchbox 20, David Pichette from Emerson Drive, Matt Nelson from Nelson, and Daniel Spree from Phil X and the Drills, and who's Phil's in Bon Jovi. So I'm surrounded by world class guys, and as of late, I, I we wrote this record during the pandemic, and you heard it. I sent you. I sent over the 6 songs. I just finished the seventh yesterday, and it's being mastered today. But during the pandemic, I wrote a record and started producing it. And what people don't understand is sometimes art and those kinds of things just take time. And I'm glad that it did because it led me to this. I'm launching my solo career with this. And it's not Elvis Monroe still exists. We still have those songs, but this new album it's me, and I'm still continuing to add. I have a couple more songs that have to make this album with 12 more, 13 more behind it. But this is the body of work that tells where I've been, where I'm at, what's going on in my life right now. And
by the
yeah,
way, every song, and I love our relationship. And you and I, we actually met your first night there at Red Rock. Your guys' very first show. I was there for the radio station they worked for at the time. We were doing a live broadcast there that night, and so I literally I met you right before your very first concert inside the
wow,
Lounge at Red Rock. So I was there that night. I'm like, dude, this guy's really cool, and these guys are really good. So you and I met.
thank
That's the
you.
first time we ever met. And I love our relationship because we'll be at the gym, we'll be working out, we'll start chit chatting, have great conversations at the gym.
Yep.
And he'll be like, dude, I just finished this one song. I want to send it to you. And literally, by the time I get to my car, you send it to me, and I listen to it on the way home. And I'm sending you a message. I'm like, dude, this is a hit, man. I love this song. I think I could hear this song being played somewhere else. And I love the fact that every time I feel like you finish that song or get close to finishing it, you send me a copy to listen
You
to.
get it before anyone. Yeah,
I'm
because
honored. And I listen to them
thank you.
over and over, man.
Bro, you've been in radio forever, TV forever. I admire who you are. I just said it. Like you asked me a question, and I'm talking about you, and because I'm inspired by you. You take on these pivots that happen in our lives, things that are unexpected, and you take a moment, digest it, and go, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else right now. And you go for it. But you go all in.
Well, I got
It,
oh, thank you, but I
yeah,
wanna get to you, and there's one thing I wanna say, it comes back to me, but it's something that I repeat this story. You might not remember this, but I tell this story a lot. We were at the gym, this was probably maybe 2 years ago. You'd just been on Las Vegas now, I saw you over the weekend, we're working out, and you were thanking me for coming on the show. I'm like, "Dude, you're awesome. You come on the show anytime." I made a comment. I'm like, I'm like your Ryan Seacrest, and you're like that band, the big band, and I'm like your Ryan Seacrest supporting you." And you stopped, you looked me in my eyes and said, "You're not my Ryan Seacrest, you're my JC Fernandez." And I'm like,
exactly. Yep,
"Oh, boom."
absolutely.
And that sticks with
Absolutely.
me. That was a moment like, yeah, I'm
You
me.
you are you. And that's what's so cool. And I take on there's certain things like that where people will do the same thing, say nice things, and then when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, well, I admire these people, but I that's what makes me different from them. Um, I somebody I played my album for, and it took him a minute, but once he heard it, is Tony Orlando, legend here, and he called me, talked to me for 45 minutes. I had to walk outside the gym, listen to what he was saying, and I was like, oh my gosh. Then a few days later said, can I hear more? I sent him the album, and you heard it already.
Mhm.
And he calls me on a Friday, and at 7:30 talks to me. I'm sitting on my couch, and then he calls me again at 9:30, then again at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm pulling out of a venue, hoping I'm not going to lose him. And he goes, I got a call like this when I was young, and it was from somebody you might know. And he goes, it was Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra is talking to me about my song and what I should be doing, and who he wants to introduce me to. And he did all those things. I said, well, let me stop and tell you, on a Friday night, I'm in Las Vegas sitting in my car, and Tony Orlando called me and talked to me about the same thing. So I have Tony Orlando on the phone. I go, if it doesn't go any further than this, just your forward on this, just you hearing it before anybody else and your reaction is that's enough for me, and just the fact that he's 81 years old and he's like, I want to play for, I'm like, you don't have to do anything, you're doing it already. Like it means a lot, and it'll be something that I carry forever. But I'm gonna tell you, man, like I remember watching Imagine Dragons, their documentary, and they're shouting you out on stage at Allegiant Stadium. And I'm like, bro, like, are you serious right now? That's my boy. And they are giving you credit for it just seeing something in them that most didn't, but you took a chance. You were their JC Fernandez. You know what I'm saying? And they let the world know at that moment, not just Allegiant Stadium, not just Las Vegas. The world knew, who you were, and that's the marks that we chase. That we get up every morning. We're the hero of our own story. What are we going to do with this day? And I lost my brother in December, and my mom and dad are staying. They came back from. We did a ceremony in South Dakota for my brother, and we spread his ashes there because he had a vision many years ago that he was at Wounded Knee, and he remembers it vividly. And he told my mom, and then he told me. And so when he was passing, he said, "Will you take me back there?" So as a family, we went out, and that was his ceremony. And we're Lakota, and we did a ceremony, and then we spread his ashes. And I was in tears 15 minutes before we started this because my parents gave me a card. And in the card, it's from my brother. It's a brother card. And they said, we saw this and we just knew that this had to come from your brother. And they wrote inside it. And my mom goes, did you read it? And I'm like, no. And then I looked down and I was just serious. Like I got to go on TV in 15 minutes and I'm just bawling in my living room. And as they just took off with the with the dog. But I mean, that's what life is, man.
Wait, so your parents, they just left town?
No, no, no. They didn't leave. They just went to take the dog to the dog park and do
They
their
just gave you
things.
that card this morning?
They just gave it to me 15 minutes before we got started,
Oh my God.
and I was just in tears. A birthday card. It, I was like, "Thanks, Mom," and she's like, "Did you read it?" And I'm like, "No." I stopped, and all of a sudden, I lost it. And that's what my latest song is. I did a 3-day water fast for my brother in January. He passed December 15th, which was a crazy story because the last TV I did was with you. And we went and to promote a show that I did on December 15th. And that week, I'm in your studio and I get a call from my sister. And she said, you have to get here like now. And I went, what's going on? And she goes, he's not going to make it. We just had to put him in the hospital. And I'm in your green room and then had to come out and do an interview with you and pretend that nothing was going on, and then had to go home and get a flight. And I took off and I didn't get to rehearse. I didn't get to do any more interviews. And an article had just come out in the Las Vegas Review uh,
Your
Journal.
journal. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, with cats. And between that and you being on your show and me talking about Route 91, like we were going back to those grounds to do a show there. That like I spent a week in the hospital with my brother, and then he said, "Break me out." And I didn't share this with anyone. He said, "Get me out of the hospital. There's 30 people in that room every day, and there could only be two at a time to see my brother in the hospital. He had a heart condition, so." I break him out on Friday and he goes, you're going back to do that show. You have to go back to Route 91 grounds. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going to cancel the show. I already canceled my flight. And he goes, get a new flight. His wife's a flight agent. And he goes, I'm going to get her to reschedule your flight, get me out of the hospital, and get me home so I can be with my dogs. And they know that I didn't leave them, and I'll wait for you. And I said, no. He goes, no. He made me promise that Thursday to be by his side. And I said, I will. And I surprised him that Thursday with Marcus Allen on FaceTime, and who is his favorite player of all time. And I surprised my brother, and John Orlando helped put that together. I had Marcus on one of the shows one time, and it was incredible. So then I break him out on Friday. I get him home that night. I catch a flight a few hours later. I get no sleep, come into town. Miles Shawn, my guitar player who's in Puddle of Mud, his dad is from Journey, Neil Shawn. We didn't get to rehearse. We did the show. We go up on the grounds, and I thought I'd be fine. And then all of a sudden, I get this anxiety thing. So I step outside, I grab my sage, my eagle feather, and I start blessing the grounds like I told you I was going to do. It calmed me down. I went back in, did sound check. In the middle of sound check, Chairman Mark Fox, the head of 3 tribes out of North Dakota, says, "Can I speak to you for a moment?" I'm standing in front of a crowd, and he presents me a handmade cedar box, and he talks about it and what the symbolism of it is. And inside was an eagle feather. And he said, for what you did on these grounds, that you still came back, and we know what's going on with your brother. Um, and he said, I saw some things on your podcast. And he says all this in this moment. And then he presents this eagle feather. And then Mo Plenty from Yellowstone was there. They presented him with a handmade a medallion, beaded medallion. Then I do sound check. I do the show. I don't know how I got through it because I had no sleep all week. And then the next morning, I have to catch a flight. Really, like it was like, you have to get here now. And I was trying to put it off and for a day because I needed a day and I wanted my brother to be around. And he's like, you have to get here now, but I'm waiting for you. And I'm crying at the airport, crying on the plane. I have my sunglasses on. My best friend, one of my best friends, picks me up, drives me in there, and my brother's very first words were, "I was a show," and I went, "Whoa!" And I just start crying. One of his childhood best friends just kind of passes the torch and goes, "I love you," and he loves it. He says, "I love you." My family's standing around, and he walked out the door. And when my brother knew, he kissed his wife, and then he wanted his big brother in his arms. And then he told me, he said, "Bryan, I have to do this Warriors Walk alone. You can't come with me. You can't save me. You can't trade with me." And I didn't have an answer for him. I'm his big brother, and I didn't know what to say. And then he let go. And it was crazy. So this right here, I feel my
Oh,
brother every
yeah.
day. I have these moments with my brother. Well, in January, I did a 3-day water fast. And I just kept asking, "What are you doing now? Where are you at?" And I came out of it, and my mom says to me, "Bryan, you know, your brother said you can't go with him." But she said, I just read a thing that the oldest sibling, all the siblings below the eldest, takes a part of they carry their DNA as well, not just the parents, but
Mhm.
of the first. She goes, "So you are with your brother. He carried your DNA, and not just my makeup as well." And I just start crying. And then my buddy from the band Saving Abel, all those big hits, Addicted, all that stuff, he came into town, borrowed one of my guitars, and when he gave the guitar back to me, he said, "Thank you. Here's a piece of music. You can write to it if you want." And so 2 days after the fast, I sat down, listened to it, and I wrote the song called "Paradise and Peace," which will be my first single. And I just woke this morning from Phil X from Bon Jovi. I asked him for notes on my mix, and he goes, I only have two. If I'm too late, because I gave them to him a couple of days ago, he goes, "I'm in rehearsals with Bon Jovi right now. I'm sorry, I'm in Florida, but I only have two notes, but they're just subjective. So if I don't make it, it's my fault, you know." But we do that with each other. He sends me songs, I send him songs. We do that, and it's a great relationship. And so I don't know if it'll make it, but I got to thank Kevin Zucker right now. Kevin Zucker from the Docksiders. He sat down and produced this song with me, and I'm at the gym, another gym moment, and I'm listening to the song that I just sang in my car. A friend of mine, Katie, I thank her husband all the time. I said, "You asked me to give her a ride home one night, so I do." And I asked her if I could sing into her phone. I played the guitar through the phone and sang into her phone because the song was running through my head. And she sat there watching this happen. And so Katie helped me, and then Kevin Zucker got it across the finish line with me, and then all my Chris Latham and Jason Carter and this one of these this guy Tom, and then Matt and Gunnar Nelson, Ricky Nelson's sons, sang harmonies on the song for me on Sunday, yeah, last Sunday, and then we mixed it yesterday.
Well, you sent me a
Yeah,
copy last night. This is
I
our
did.
friendship. You sent me a copy last night. I
I
listened
did.
this morning. Yeah, I think it's a I mean, I know the backstory behind the song,
Mhm.
so it's a very emotional song, and I can hear it in your voice. I can hear, almost like you're holding back tears as you're singing the song. But that removed too, it's also it's a great song too, the way it's just you start, it kicks in, you have the voicemail of your brother there at one point. It's
Yeah.
spoiler alert, but
Thank
it's
you.
just I mean, there's layers to the song.
Thank you.
And then all of a sudden it just ends and just, by the end of the song, I'm singing the lyrics to the song, like the chorus,
Thank
and then it
you.
just ends, and I'm like, "Wait, oh."
Ah, thanks, bro.
Yeah,
Like
it's good, it's
it,
good.
it, it meant a lot to me too, because Gunnar Nelson, Gunnar doesn't. Maddie sings on most of my stuff with me. This last album, Bryce Soderbergh from Lifehouse sang on a couple of songs. And but anyway, it just Gunnar had jumped on a call and was like, "Hey Brian, I really like this song. Can I be a part of it too?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, yes, please." And so Gunnar sang on it. He did this like little choir thing in it that you hear in the choruses and the last choruses. But to have like Phil X sent me a message and he's like, "Hey, if I missed it, I'm sorry. But as I'm typing this, I'm still crying." And he goes, "So, but here's my two notes. That's it, like turn the kick up and, and maybe the guitar down a little bit right when it comes in. That's it." And he's a guitar player. So I was like, well, if I can make it in time, I'll send it over. But I sent it over to mastering yesterday. And so,
Sounds great.
thank you. Thank
The
you. But it's all subjective. And for me, I'm putting it out because it's, again, it's what's happening. And I write about what's going on in my life. And, you heard a song that Competing with Giants has Superman on it, bro. Like he's a Crow Nation Indian who is just spreading positivity through hip hop music. And I discovered him at college radio. My niece was playing him at radio, and I went to a show and he knew who I was, kind of. He's like, "Elvis," and I'm like, "Oh, my name's Brian, but I think he knows who I am." And calls,
I
yeah,
thought it was Elvis too the first time we met, by the way. I'm like,
really? Okay,
"Hi, Elvis,
sorry.
what's his last name? Last name's Monroe." Oh, it's the band.
Yeah, no, it's Matt Nelson named the band. He called me Elvis, so it was his way of getting people to call me Elvis,
Huh?
which was wild. Matty, when he met me, he said, "No, there's a backstory. I'll tell you," and he told me, and I was just like, "Wow."
Well,
So
I want to know, and not to change gears here, but
no,
I'm gonna
yeah,
shift gears. I know
no,
that
please,
you at one point you ended up in Hollywood. You moved out there. You're working at
I did.
Jason's Deli, if I have this right.
Jerry's Deli,
Jerry's
yeah,
Deli. Jerry's
yeah,
Deli. Okay, the iconic Jerry's Deli.
yes.
You're working out there in Hollywood. How do you end up start off with acting? Because acting came before the singing, right?
Yes, it did.
So how do you go to Hollywood and how do you start acting in shows and everything?
So I went to Hollywood. One of my childhood best friends is a guy named Chris McCoy, and it was his birthday yesterday. We were kids, and James Woods and James Gardner were shooting a movie on our street in Salem, Oregon. And we took our bikes and rode up. We were kids, and we rode up to where they were shooting it, and we were watching them do this, and we were like, we could do that. We could do that. He was a wrestler on the USA team. I'm a football and baseball player. I was drafted out of high school, so sports was my life. And we're sitting here watching them, and then they took a break at lunch, and so we just walked through, and we went up to them and said hi and asked them a couple of questions, and they were like, "Young man, why don't you just sit down?" And they gave us their time and gave us tips on what we needed to do. Well, Chris was 2 years older than me, so he graduated, didn't want to go to college with wrestling, and so he graduates and is like, "No, I don't want to go to college." And he was a USA wrestler. He was on the USA team, and he's like, "There's no future in this," and he didn't want to do like UFC or anything like that, and that was just new. And so he goes to Hollywood, and James Woods gave him his first part in a movie and got his SAG card. Well, I followed 2 years later. Baseball, I get hurt in baseball. So I drive to LA. My uncle gives me a job. I make enough money. I drive to LA. I'm going to go to where he's at, but he's living in a house with like four other people, a really well known choreographer, and then another buddy. They're all friends of mine still to this day. And so there's a bunch of people living in a house, right? And I can't go there. So I I just get off the freeway at the 170. I see the Gold's Gym in North Hollywood. I pull in there. I sleep. I walk in. I ask how much for a 1 year membership. They tell me it's like 400 and some dollars. I pay it for 1 year. And I lived in that parking lot for 3.5 months.
In your
I
car.
got, I got, and I had a 240Z, and I got a job at Jerry's Deli.
That's not a big car. If people are not car people,
No, it's not.
car.
It doesn't even recline.
Right, yeah, there's no
Doesn't
room.
even go back. There's no. I'm tall. I'm 6'3", so my legs would outstretch like I could, but I'm just kneeling back and just sleeping. So, but here was the thing. I get a job working from midnight to 7 in the morning. And I'm around all of these people watching all this happen. Vince Vaughn, Cuba Gooding Jr., like these guys are all my friends. And I'm surrounded by up and coming talent, right?
Mhm.
And one day I go pick up a residual check because my friend was the Sega glove commercial on national. He was the lead. Chris was the lead in this commercial. So he's like, "Hey, will you pick up my residual check from my agent?" I said, "Yeah." And I'm sitting in this office, and this woman, Natalie Rawson, comes walking by, stops and goes, "Excuse me, you're not a client of mine. Are you an actor?" And I said, "What? No, I'm not an actor, and no, I'm not a client. I'm here to pick up mail for Chris, a check." And she's like, "Would you consider reading something for me?" And I went, "I've never done this before." And so she tells me what a monologue is, gives me an example, then gives me a sheet. I work on it for 15 minutes. I walk in her office, I read it, and she goes, "I'm going to send you on an audition tomorrow for a show called Tribes." And it was a Fox teenage soap opera. And it's a teenage soap opera. And at the time, I'm 20 years old.
Mhm.
And I go and I read for Barbara Libis, very famous casting director. She shared an office, and I got to see him. Kevin Costner was right next door. He paid for the lot, their space at Paramount. She tells me this story after I read for her, and she said she gave me his first speaking role. So by doing that, he gave her this. He paid for her space. Her business was paid for. So I read for her, and she goes, "Who have you studied with?" And I'm like, "No one. This is my first audition." I told her the story. I was honest, and I shouldn't have been. So obviously, my resume that Natalie put together was like padded. I'm like, "I've never done this before." She goes, "Don't change a thing. I'm bringing you to callbacks. There are going to be 10 to 12 people in the room. Just do exactly what you did. People are going to tell you to do this, do that, whatever. Don't listen to them. Stick with here and what you just, the way you approach this." And I went, "Okay." I went in and I get a call. I got it. And I'm like, "What?" Well, the show gets canceled. So I never got to shoot it. Shot in like 2.5 weeks. And because of a show called 90210. And was Fox was picking up this new show, and so they dropped Tribes, but that I knew I could do. So I worked my way up from Natalie to Triad Agency all the way to William Morris. So I this act this
Hey, by the way, your buddy Chris doing the Sega
yeah,
glove thing, that's iconic, by the way.
yeah,
That's,
right, right.
super
Well,
90s.
he was on The Guys Next Door. He ended up getting The Guys Next Door, which was on after Saved by the Bell.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
your show, you land the show Tribe. You think we're gonna be picked up by Fox, but Fox dumps us to go with
Well, Fox dumps it to start 90210.
90210, this little
Yeah.
show that did
Yeah.
nothing. What were some of the shows? What were some of the gigs you got that we might be familiar with?
I did Saved by the Bell.
You did?
I did. Yeah, like if you go to my social media at Bryan Hopkins Music, right at the top, it says where's Vince Montana now, and it shows a little clip of I had to make out with Kelly Kapowski, which was horrible.
Are you
And
kidding me,
yeah,
dude?
I played Vince Montana, and
An
in
actual character on the show. You were like a background guy. You had a name. Vince Montana was your
yeah, no, I had a character, and they hid me from the crowd. And when I got the part, I walked in one day, and Tiffany and Elizabeth come running up to me, and they're like, "Bryan, oh my gosh!" They're like, Tiffany goes, "Elizabeth, tell Bryan what I told you about 2 hours ago at the table reading." She goes, "We just at the table reading, and this character comes up, Vince Montana, and she goes, "You know who would be perfect for this? Bryan." And I'm like, who's the character? They're like, Vince Montana. I said, Vince Montana. That's why I'm here. And they're like, no way. So we were friends before they had nothing to do with it. I got the part. And Patrick Muldoon, it was between he and I. So they gave him another part. And he's from Starship Troopers and all these things. And so I did All My Children. I did a movie with Adam Beach called My Indian Summer.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is I had worked my way up to Triad, and then Triad to William Morris, and all because of waiting tables. When I was working, these agents would come in, and one day, Steve Himber, big time agent, is coming back from playing tennis with all his agent buddies, and he gets up to go to the bathroom, and I come up to the table, and they weren't even my table, and they were like, "Excuse me," called me up to the table, and it was somebody else from another big agency, and he's like, "Hey, here's my card. I would love to speak to you." And Steve comes out and goes, "No, no, 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 no. Who's the biggest agent here? I saw him first. Gives me his card, made me come in and read for him, sent me out to see 3 casting directors and read for them, just generals, not reading for anything, just to get their feedback on should he sign me. And he did. And but here was the thing: it wasn't my passion. It wasn't something that just oozed out of me. Music was something that chose me, and it's a crazy story because I'm acting, I'm working at Jerry's, and this guy grabs me by the arm and goes, "Hey, man, you a singer?" No one asked me that ever. They would say, "Are you an actor?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And he goes, "That's funny. You've been walking past me singing all night." And I went, "I have." He goes, "My name's Alan. We should talk." We get together, we're talking, and he's a producer, Alan Savory. And we wrote a song. And we ended up recording it, and I got picked up by Mars Azar, who was producing Seal at the time with Trevor Horn. And he put me in the studio, we wrote songs, and I had this thing that happened to me. I was at Universal, and I went to a concert, a Kiss FM concert of all things, and Natalie took me. Natalie Rawson, my agent, she got me, my brother, and one of my best friends, for childhood buddies who was visiting, tickets to the show. And I go to the bathroom and I get swarmed by all these teenage girls. Security sends me back to my seat. I never even got to go to the bathroom. So I get up to leave. I tell my brother, he doesn't believe me. We leave the concert, and it happens again in front of my agent. So much so that my brother's yelling at security, grabs my head, runs me through the crowd. We have to take off running, mob mentality. They're chasing me from across the bridge, from behind me. I get to the fence. Girl catches me. I'm like, "What do you want?" She goes, "Give me a hug. You better go." And I jump the fence, and they're just lined up screaming. And my agent calls me the next day. I'm laughing, going, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
Right? My agent calls me and goes, "I've never seen anything like that happen before. This is Hollywood." Right? And I went, "Yeah, this is crazy." She goes, "Do you sing or play guitar?" I said, "No, I don't." Well, 2 months later, I go to another concert in Ventura. It happens to me in the crowd again. So the promoter pulls me out of the crowd, takes me backstage, puts a lanyard on me, walks up to me and says, "Can you remember Rainbow Girls, this label song?" And I'm like, "What? Wait, what?" He goes, because he asked me, "Who are you?" I said, "Nobody." Like, I live in my car, Like, I just moved out from living in my car at this time. And I'm like, "I'm no one." He goes, "But can you remember this?" And I said, "Sure." So he grabs the guy who was on stage, who's the host. And this is now, you know how the radio stations, and they'll do a matinee show and then a nighttime show. They had 2,100 people each show, same show. I'm at the matinee, and he goes, "Can you go out there and rile them up, and then introduce the crowd?" And when I point at you, introduce the group. And I went, "Sure." So I walk out on stage. two spotlights on me. I get the crowd going. And at that moment, I went, I didn't earn this, but I'm supposed to be here. So how do I earn this? And then, and I wanted to chase that moment. I remember Mars Azar hearing him through the control panel. We'll make videos with this guy, blah, blah, blah. We'll not worry about being on stage. And I'm like, no, that's where I want to be. And that is my favorite place to be. But it made me nervous to be there, but I had to earn it. So I spent a lot of hours and a lot of time on stage. And I'm telling you, I'm playing tomorrow. If this, I don't know when this airs, but I'm playing tomorrow, May 10th here in Vegas. And it's a festival. And it's mainly Hawaiian acts, Hawaiian reggae. I don't care. I will go out there and put on a show and have fun and get them singing my songs and my songs. And that's who I am. That's my place and my space. And I love it. And I had to work at it to find this thing in me that was, it presented itself. And I'm like, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, I felt it. I felt it that night on stage in front of 2,100 people. And I got to host the rest of the show and the next one. So I was the host. But the whole time I'm thinking, I did not earn this. This was presented to me and I have to find a way to get here. So I put in the work. And, and now my guitars are behind me. I'm not a great guitar player, I'm really not, but I will come up with stuff on it and give it to, I surround myself with people who are so much better than me, in my opinion, that I have to try and always reach their level.
They elevate you. Yeah, they elevate you.
Yes, yes. And that's that. All the people that I was listing off, I'm not saying their names to brag about who they are and, oh, look at who I get to hang out. They deserve it. Just like you, when you were like, I'm the Ryan Seek guy, and I'm like, no, you're JC Fernandez.
It's
And
funny.
that's who I am.
Your story about being out there on stage, and you just like you knew you had to be there. For me, when I started in radio, I started at UNLV, KUNV, the college radio station, and I remember walking by the radio station and seeing the microphone and it was old school like and this is the '90s, but still it was just
Yeah,
the old school radio. I'm like, wow, there's something about it. Like I wanted to do it. It was like calling me inside, and they had literally a flyer up about this radio class, this seminar that they're teaching, and to learn to
yeah,
be on the radio. I'm like, awesome, I'm going in. I'll never forget this. UNLV, I go into this room. There's probably 30 people in this big U-shaped table. And at the time, KUNV, they did alternative and they did jazz. And so the program director goes around the room. He goes, what do you want to do? And everyone goes, alternative, 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 alternative. And it comes down to me, and I'm like, I want to be on the radio. So the guy points to me. He's like, what do you want to do? And I go, I want to do jazz. He's like, you do? I'm like, yeah, I want to be a jazz DJ. And he's like, all right, well, talk to me afterwards. I was on the air in less than 2 weeks hosting.
no way.
I just want to be on the radio. I knew
Yeah.
nothing about jazz, but I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. And if everyone else wants to do alternative, I'll be the guy that does jazz because that'll get me on the radio. And I was on within 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. It's hard. You just, it's one of those things where you got to you put in the work, but you saw an opportunity and you were like, I can get on there and then I can start figuring out who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And what moves me, but let me get in. Let me get in there and show who I am and what I can do. And that's what I did. I just, one of my friends, Steven Stotts, he's my old bandmate, my first band. I am signed as an artist. I'm sharing a studio recording with Charo in one room, and Easy E and I are sharing the studio. He would go in at night and I would go in the daytime for 2 weeks recording my first things. But knowing in the back of my head, I want to be on stage, but I'm scared of it, but that's where I want to be. And so I see these guys in a park, and Steven Stotts, who just came to my brother's ceremony, like surprised me. We surprised my family, and he and his girl came. They own the Pioneer here in town. But anyway, so anyway, long story over. He was in my first band, and I was just reiterating. I go, do you know that I paid do you remember me paying to audition for the band? But I said, I'm giving you guys enough money to be at rehearsal for a month because I'm going to need a month's worth of standing in front of you guys, even if I suck, to be in the band. And he goes, no, I don't remember that. I said, I did. And that I remember because I knew the first day I was going to be sweating bullets. And, but I knew I had to work at it. And so, yeah. And I have a funny story because I was at NAM and my bus had Elvis Monroe on the side of the bus. I'm at NAM. It's parked out front. We were out on tour with Three Doors Down at the time. So, but we had a chance. We had a show there at NAM. It's a huge convention. Anyone, it's like thousands of people from all over the world go to this. It's all musicians. And this guy walks past me, and I go, "Happening, Harry." Bryan Hopkins. I was in a band called Early Dawn, and you booked my very first show. And he looks at me and he saw me get off the bus, and he goes, "That's you." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I like your band." I go, "Thanks." He goes, "Back then, you were not good." And I laughed. I was like, "I know, but there's my bus." You know what I'm saying? Like I laughed, but I was like, "How rude, man. You said that there are people around me who are like," but I didn't, I just was like, "Yeah, I know." Like, but he goes, "But you could pack a room." That's what he said. He was like, "Now, I remember people would just come out and see you." So they must have saw something in me that would keep bringing people would just keep coming back, that allowed me to be where I am right now.
Well, here's something, and you're so talented. This to me, this is kind of wild. So you mentioned you were in a studio earlier on in your career, and Charo was in another studio.
She was next door. I could hear her through the walls in the other studio. Yeah.
Okay, ready for this? So
Yeah.
Brian is coming on. I'm one of the hosts on Las Vegas now, and this afternoon we have our show. And Brian, I'll see you this afternoon. You're coming
Yeah.
to talk about your concert this weekend. Charo is coming on the show as well, and so you'll be in the green room with Charo this afternoon.
No,
Talk about a full circle moment.
no. And I'm sharing this story.
Yeah, you're sharing
No,
this story with
she
Charo,
was so sweet to
and you're
me.
literally
She
gonna
would
be
come
with her
to the
literally like 4 hours in the recording time. You're gonna be hanging out with Charo in her green room. Yes, isn't that a trip?
if we're not in the room at the same time, I'm staying until we are.
Do it.
Dude, bro, she was in the room next to me and I could hear her and she could hear me. It was the craziest thing.
You're hanging out with, and then at this moment with your latest song and everything else, you talk about like a full circle. Like this is like that's weird, man. The universe is so weird.
Well, because of time constraints, because I know how TV works when I go there. I want to be able to promote what we're doing today. I'm like, I don't, my guitar player is still in LA. So I'm like, that's okay. JC and I never get to just talk,
Yeah.
like on the air. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. And then the promoters were like, "Hey, one of the headliners is in town. Will you take him with you?" So I'm bringing Shane from Sudden Rush, the singer
Okay.
from that. So
Awesome.
we'll sit down with you today. That's crazy,
Yeah,
man.
man, yeah. You and Charo will be hanging out this afternoon. Old friends reconnected.
My gosh, she was so sweet. And
Oh,
here I
good.
am,
Gucci, Gucci,
like
Gucci. Really good.
I used to. Easy E was he would. I would have to air out the studio. Obviously, we come in the morning and just air it out because it was like a Cheech and Chong movie or something. Just smoke just rolling out of it. And I got a story too. When you said when you were a kid and you were walking past, I have a moment. You know how like your life could go this way or that way. And there are moments where these branches go. And I remember being in junior high and these popular kids that were a couple years older than me were at the high school and they came and played an assembly for us. And there was just bass, guitar, and drums. And they announced on the mic that they don't have a singer. They're just playing music, but no vocals. And I used to walk home from football, baseball, and basketball practice past this house where I could hear them playing. So when they were playing, I'm like, "Oh, that's them." And I knew I knew they lived there and rehearsed there. And I walked through the gate, up the little pathway, got to the door, stood there nervous. I didn't knock. I backed away the gate, kept walking home. But I almost knocked at the door to audition for the band. Like, hey, what can I do to audition? And I got fear. Like, plus they were older, like, but they asked at junior high, hey, we're looking for a singer. And they were at my school and I'm in the seventh grade or, and going, oh my gosh, like my dad's a singer in a band, at the time my dad was a singer. So I grew up, I have a song called Backyard Family Barbecue. I grew up with that happening daily. But when it would happen with my uncle and dad and they'd be singing and playing in the backyard, I picked up the baseball or football or basketball and I would go off and practice more until the
Yeah.
lights came on, and it's just one of those things, but it still found its way to me. And
Hey,
yeah.
our hour's coming up to an end here, man.
Oh yeah, no worries.
This has been a blast. This has been a treat, and we can go and let 3 more. I gotta come back
So,
on. This is
so
like
you're
part
gonna this is yeah, I will do this anytime with you, man. And yeah, we could go dive deep, but you have to come on my podcast. We got a new studio opening up. I think we're temporarily we're going to be at the Palazzo.
Okay.
We're going to
Wow.
be shooting out of there.
Nice.
So I gotta have you on. You have to
100%, man.
come. And if we talk for a long time, I'll just turn it into a two-parter
I love it.
because I want to hear your story. I want to hear more of that because we do that at the gym, and I'm just like, And if you're not watching your podcast, what's the name of your podcast? What is it?
JC Unplugged.
There you go. You got to
JC
go check
Unplugged.
that out.
My brother, thank you
I'm
so
a
much. I'll
fan.
see you in a couple hours. You and
I'll see you
Charlie.
in
This
a
is gonna be
bit.
great.
Yeah, that's
See you,
so
Bryan.
cool.
Thank you so
See
much.
you,
I
man.
appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching. Appreciate it.